Here we are on American Warrior Radio, live from Iraq with Major General Jeffrey Buchanan.
1 minute. Sunny skies during our forecast for this Saturday. We'll have an afternoon high of 80 degrees. That's about 10 degrees cooler than it has been over the past several months. It'll be breezy as well today with wind out of the north, 15 to 25 miles per hour. Tonight, look for clear skies and a chilly low of 58 degrees. Then for tomorrow, Sunday, look for sunny skies with a high of 80 degrees. It's NASCAR racing tomorrow at 12 noon here on AM 1300.
AM 1300 WMEL.
What's going on, everybody? This is Soldier Hard, and welcome to the American Warrior Radio, 1300 on your AM dial, WMEL, and online at 1300WMEL.com, sponsored by AVET Project. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down the front lines, bombs going off when we drive by. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down the front lines, bombs going off when we drive by. Yeah, you got questions? Garen and Glenn have answers. Pick up the phone and give them a call. Tell them Soldier I sent you. 321-631-1300.
Welcome to another exciting edition of American Warrior Radio, the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, sponsored by AVET Project. You know, this program is all about supporting our troops. So all you patriotic Americans out there, get comfortable and let's kick the tires and light the fires. My name is Garen Cohn. I'm the president and founder of AVET Project. I'm an Air Force veteran and a retired legal advocate for veterans, but as always, I'm not flying through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Services team. And today, again, we're blessed with having a very special guest, and I'm retired Air Force, so we got two blue suiters coming at you here, and we're gonna talk to some Army people stationed in Iraq today, right now. You're gonna get the right story right here, right now. How about introducing our guest, Garen?
It's absolutely my pleasure, Glenn. We actually have on the line, live from Iraq, the spokesman for the United States Forces in Iraq, Major General Jeffrey Buchanan. General, can you hear us?
I sure can. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know you make the rounds, and you're one heck of a spokesperson for our brave men and women over there. I've had a chance to look at some of the interviews you've done, and I really appreciate you sharing some news and notes of the theater over there with our audience. And just for reference, what time is it over there right now?
It's 1809. I'm sorry, 9 after 6 in the evening.
That's true dedication to duty for you to stay up late, well, 6 o'clock in the evening anyway, because here we're just getting started on the Space Coast of Florida. We got sunny skies, and after looking at a few of your interviews, it's still pretty hot over there in Iraq, yes?
It is. It was, I think it was 102 yesterday, but I mean, that's nothing compared to what it was in the summer. We got up to, I think the hottest I saw it this summer was 132 at one point down in the south. So it tends to get a little warm here.
Oh my goodness, and it's not like we issue shorts and tank tops for the guys and gals to wear.
Well, no, not exactly.
Well, we appreciate the sacrifices you and all our brave men and women over there are making. And again, thanks for joining us. I sent you some questions because we do have a lot of folks that listen to American Warrior Radio want to know some of the goings on right there in theater, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, without belaboring the point of the great sacrifices you make, I got to launch right in here. And one big question we get from our audience, and again, I know you're the spokesman, so you can pretty much speak for everyone over there. There seems to be a great number of folks that are private contractors, and I guess they're there as a complement to our military forces. The big question folks have is, as we wind down our military operations, can you give us a number or a sense of how many private contractors will be left in theater when all our uniformed folks come back home?
Well, working for Department of Defense, there won't be much of any. The way the situation is currently, our countries, Iraq and the U.S., signed a security agreement in 2008, and one of the mandates of that agreement is that our troops transition completely to civilian authority and withdraw by the end of this year, and we're on track to do that, and I can talk in detail about all the aspects of it. But with respect to contractors, right now we've got about a little bit more than 40,000 troops in Iraq, and as paid for by DOD, about 52,000 contractors. Now, both of those are set to go to zero by the end of the year. And a lot of times I get questioned, well, why do we have so many contractors? And it's because, many of them are doing things. The vast majority of them perform functions that we would call life support, whether it's driving trucks, cooking in the dining facility, working in the laundry, these sorts of things. Most of them are not American citizens. They come from Pakistan, the Philippines, Iraq, but they perform a lot of functions that are important to keep things running, but actually free up our military to do the military-specific things like clear routes and train the Iraqi security forces. So all of those numbers, we're set right now. All of those will go to zero by the end of the year.
Well, General, you raise a good point, and that is that we've got this complement of basically civilian workers working alongside to free up our military troops. A question that I have personally is, as we see our military, our active duty forces downsized, and we see so many National Guard and Reserve outfits federalized or sent over there in support of this, do you have an opinion as to whether or not our active duty military strength is sufficient, given that such a huge number of private contractors are needed to free you guys up, as you said?
Well, I think it reflects a change in how we have operated over the years, and we do rely very significantly on contractors, and but it really, like I said, it enables the military to do military-specific things, and so we get more results for our investment, if you will, or more bang for the buck. But with respect to our National Guard and reservists of all services, whether it's the Army Guard, the Air Guard,
sure,
or the Army, Navy, or Air Force or Marine Corps Reserve, all of them do a phenomenal job. Honestly, we could not do what we do without them, but it's not because necessarily they are just more of the same. If you look at the composition of our reserve forces, a number of years ago, our military and our civilian leadership made decisions about investing a lot in specific areas in the reserve. Just one good example is the civil affairs. If you look at the Army, about 90% of the civil affairs structure in the Army is in the Army Reserve rather than the active component. And at first blush, especially when you start thinking about how important civil affairs is, one would think, well, don't we need more in the active component? The answer is yes, and the Army this year is standing up a second active component civil affairs brigade where they've only had one for years and years. But the reason we need so many in the Army Reserve is because of the tremendous experience and the value that they bring through their civilian employment to their job as a civil affairs officer or non-commissioned officer. You know, if you want somebody to help set up the planning for a city, the best person to do it is a person who's working as a city planner. Or if you want somebody to set up a court system, the best person to do it might be a judge who also happens to be an Army reservist. And so there is some method to the madness, but suffice it to say that we work together as a full force, both active and reserve components, and all are important to getting the job done.
Yeah, General. Hello, this is Glenn, and I wonder, we get familiar, all of us that have been in the military or still in the military, with using terms, and I wonder if you might clarify for our listeners a little more about what civil affairs is, what function that is. You alluded to a little of it there.
Sure. The various services have a career field they call civil affairs, and what it is it provides, the military comes in and performs operations, even during combat operations or offense or defensive operations. The military has to deal with and should deal with the public in a certain situation. But part of what we have to do is ensure that their needs are met. Certainly in what we call stability operations, which is the phase of operations that we're in Iraq, the ability of the government to provide essential services like access to clean water, economic situation where people have jobs, all of those kinds of things, education, healthcare. We have teams in the military that go in even during combat situations and work with local leaders to help them get things going to take care of the people. So one thing is that it helps take better care of the people that are in fact there, and it also helps our warfighters as we are able to employ these great officers and non-commissioned officers in such a way to enhance what we're trying to achieve on the battlefield.
So it sounds like they play a big part in the behind-the-scenes things, not necessarily militaristically, but by getting the infrastructure established after we've basically cleared the path for it to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and sometimes, even to the point of when we, if I go back to my first tour here in 2003 and 4, we would go in.
General, let me interrupt.
Potentially looking for a certain guy. Well, if there was a lot of damage because there was a firefight broke out or something, these guys are right there to help fix things. Because what we don't want to do is turn somebody who may be neutral into an enemy because we haven't taken care of them. And conversely, if you work with them enough and establish trust, that also, in addition to taking better care of them, it provides access to more information and things that we can use to make all of our operations more effective. So it is a very important skill set, and the people who are honestly best able to do that are our reservists.
Well, and you mentioned one of your previous tours. General, how many tours have you had now? What tour number is this?
Well, I'm 13 months into my fourth tour.
13 months in thank you for your service, sir. You mentioned 0304, and you served as the Director of Operations for the Coalition Military Assistance Training Team, and that's kind of what you were discussing, is getting their boots on the ground, showing them how this transition is going to take place and putting the pieces in place to make it happen.
Right, and back in one of our key things that we did back in 2003 is try to stand up the new Iraqi army, and so that's what many of our efforts were geared towards. Initially, just the army, and eventually into 2004, we started helping to work to stand up the Air Force and the Navy. And the good news is, we're now seeing the benefits of all that hard work over the years with a fully functioning, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Army, and a very robust set of police forces.
Yes, sir, and I also note that in 2005 and 6 you were serving as a brigade commander, and you deployed part of your command to Iraq, where they served as special police transition teams for the Iraqi Police Commando Division, and wondered how what's your assessment of how the training has gone in bringing the Iraqi forces, the police being police commandos and their police force being an integral part of that, how that's coming along, and how are they going to do when we're gone?
Well, they've had the lead. I'm not sure if that was Garen or Glenn, but
that was Glenn, sir.
For security throughout the country since last summer, and they've been doing a great job throughout. This doesn't mean that they don't have room to continue to grow, but let me just give you a couple of four examples.
Please.
If you go back to 2007, we were averaging about 145 attacks per day across the country, and that's focused on all potential targets, whether they're U.S., Iraqi security forces or Iraqi civilians.
That was per day?
Or less than 14%.
Now, wait a minute. You said
10% of what we had back then. There is still violence here. Iraq does remain a dangerous place, but it pales in comparison to what it used to be. And one of the key determinants of the current levels of violence and the current levels of security is the professionalism, the quantity, but more importantly, the quality of the Iraqi security forces. They've got about 650,000 troops now, about 200,000 in the Army, organized in 14 divisions. They've got a functioning Navy that's responsible for about 80% of their territorial waters, a functioning Air Force. They've got police forces to include what's now called the federal police, about 40,000 troops. Back then it was the police commandos. These guys are doing a great job. Now they need to continue to get better, and I'm confident that they will. But it's for somebody who's been here and watched them over the years, it causes me to be optimistic about the future.
Well, that's a wonderful comment. Now, I know in days past we've had as many as 500 some bases, U.S. military installations. Are these folks that have been trained by the finest military in the world, the United States military? So it doesn't surprise me that they're coming along nicely. But are they assuming responsibility for some of these bases, or how is that factoring in?
Well, we have continued to transition our bases. You mentioned we had more than 500 back at the height of the surge in 2007 and 8. We had 505, and at the start of Operation New Dawn last year on September 1st of last year, we were responsible for 92. As of today, we're now down to 28. So you can see what we've transitioned along the way. We keep doing it. We're doing all of those transitions are very well
7 minutes
internally, but also synchronized with the Iraqi government. And we go to great pains to account for all of the equipment and ensure that all of the equipment is either redeployed to the United States or Kuwait, where sometimes it's rebuilt and can be employed elsewhere like Afghanistan. Sometimes that equipment is transitioned or transferred to the State Department, who needs some of it. And then when we have no need for it in the United States or the State Department, some of it we transfer control back to the government of Iraq. And an example I gave the other day in an interview is air conditioners. You know, our troops, especially when it pushes 120 or 130 in the summertime, years ago we bought air conditioners for their tents or the trailers that they're sleeping in at night so that they could in fact sleep. Well, now those air conditioners are in some cases 8 years old. Question is, when we transition a base, what do we do with all those air conditioners?
Of course.
Well, it seems to me we really got three choices. We can either abandon them and just leave them to whomever may find them, or we can pay the millions of dollars it would take to ship these 8-year-old air conditioners back to the United States, or we can account for them and transfer control to the government of Iraq. And that last option is the obvious one. You know, we've saved the U.S. government more than $600 million this year in transportation costs by not redeploying old, worn-out equipment.
And as you mentioned, with the Iraqi forces assuming control and responsibility for their own country and their own borders and their own seaways, all these materials that you're transferring, I'm guessing, again, that's part of the mission. You've got to train them how to operate some of the machines and that sort of thing. But as far as the military type equipment, what's happening with that? Is that being transferred to them?
Much of the military equipment, you know, early on, we transferred control. In fact, when we modernized our Humvee fleet over here, we went from what was called an 1114. I know some of your listeners will be familiar with that, and we went to a more modern version. We reconditioned them and then transferred those to help equip the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police forces. And we did that in country. And so those kinds of things have gone. Starting in about 2004 is when this program's really started kicking off with some transfer of control. But the vast majority of Iraq's military equipment, especially the more modern things like M1 tanks, helicopters, patrol boats, etc., the Iraqi government is actually buying, and most of the equipment that they're buying is from the United States. You know, they announced a deal last week with buying an F-16 squadron, 18 F-16s that are manufactured in the United States, and those get
4 minutes
over the next period of years, but that's all paid for by the Iraqi government.
Well, yeah, thank you, General. And this is Glenn again, and I'm wondering with the drawdown to purportedly zero troops on the ground in support of Operation New Dawn, is it reasonable to assume that the large number of our warriors will be reassigned to other major theaters of operation, namely Afghanistan, or at least within the Gulf region?
Well, I don't, when you look at how we have lined up the redeployment of our troops, most of the troops that are deploying here are actually redeploying on what their natural end of tour dates would be. So most of them complete a full year here and are redeploying, prior to the end of the year. And we built that in and synchronized it all along. In that case, those units will return to their home station. Most of them in the United States, but occasionally we get units, of course, from Germany or elsewhere, and get set for the next mission, whatever that may be, whether it is Afghanistan or elsewhere. There are some individuals and some units that could, especially those that have just recently deployed, that could leave our combatant commanders other options with how to deal with the unit and preserve options, so that if they needed to shift them elsewhere and they had sufficient time left in their deployment clock, that could in fact happen. But the vast majority of our troops that are here in Iraq are going to redeploy, whether it's at the end of a year or the end of a 9-month tour, or whatever the case may be, back to their home duty station.
Well, General, I know we're coming to the bottom of the hour, and we've got another special guest coming over in a moment from Iraq. But one last question. As the coordinator of the political, economic, and communications activities over there, you have a broad scope of responsibility. I'm just curious, from your personal perspective, in your opinion, does the United States have a positive image with the Iraqi people and the government that's being established there?
You know, I think that many times we are seen by the Iraqi people as the honest broker. But we are also still seen, regardless of all the work that we've put in over the years, as an occupying force. We're an external military, a force, a foreign force that actually was imposed upon them without their choice. And though we helped to overthrow a very brutal dictator, and they now have they have a whole lot of opportunities that they never had in the past, we are still seen as a foreign force. And so, I think that we are trusted.
45 seconds.
In many ways, we are seen as honest brokers, but that doesn't mean that we are liked or that they want to keep us here in the same capacity, maintaining the security like we had in previous years. And that's actually a function of, I think that's a result of Iraq's growing capability and
20 seconds
to achieve what it is that we want them to achieve, which is a country that is stable, that is sovereign, and that is self-reliant. And so if you believe that you have a foreign force that's still occupying your country, well, that imposes
10 seconds.
An impact on your view of your own sovereignty and self-reliance.
General,
so I think that as our troops redeploy.
AM 1300 WMEL.
Some level of trainer.
Vince, can you bring him back up? Vince is good. He'll work this.
Okay, he's the general's still on the line, so he'll finish up here in the first minute of the next segment, and then we'll go to the captain.
Very good.
Skies during our forecast for this Saturday, we'll have an afternoon high of 80 degrees. That's about 10 degrees cooler than it has been over the past several months. It'll be breezy as well today with wind out of the north. 15
we need
to
something on the other end
25
telling the
miles per
general
hour.
how much time.
Tonight, look for clear skies and a chilly low of 58 degrees. Then for tomorrow, Sunday, look for sunny skies with a high of 80 degrees. It's NASCAR racing tomorrow, 12 noon, here on AM 1300.
Hi, it's Garen Cohn with American Warrior Radio, sitting with none other than Jeff Bodine. Say hello, Jeff.
Hi, Garen. Hi, everybody.
Hey, we're at Jeff Bodine's Honda Power Sports of Melbourne. October 9th, save the date, October 9th. You're going to see these all around town. Special event. Ride in. We're going to have hot food, adult beverages, and guess what?
Come on over and get an autograph. I'll sign it for you, get a picture, look at our new Hondas.
Join us, please, October 9th.
My wife.
Check us out on eventproject.org and Facebook.
This is Gator